Hello, today is Friday, November 14th, and welcome to episode 527 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm NSI fellow Jessica Jones, and I'm joined today by NSI Advisory Board member Les Munson, who is sitting in his car, not strapped in by a seatbelt, not safe, my friend, senior fellow Matt Hayden, and visiting fellow Algene Saljury. So today we're talking about not the reopening of the U.S. Government, but a Iraqi parliamentary election that took place earlier this week. We had an election quite exciting. I'm sure everyone was tracking it. The current Prime Minister, Shia al-Sudani's coalition placed first, which gives him a strong chance of staying in power. But his position also is complicated. He came to power with the support from the Coordination Framework, a collection of Shia Islamist parties, including Iran-backed factions, which originally viewed him as a safe, kind of manageable choice. But he's become actually popular on his own. And so, he's coming out on his own. So he might be losing support from his original backers. There's a whole bunch going on. I'm not going to, I think some of our folks on the show are going to talk about it, but we've got, Kurdish parties, we've got Sunni blocs, we've got calls to boycott the election. There's a lot going on in the Iraqi elections. So, this comes amongst the backdrop of the U.S., diminishing its military presence in 2026. We've got generational shifts. Half of Iraq is under 25. There's concerns, obviously, about corruption, unemployment, utilities, electricity, water. There's a lot going on. So Algene, I'm going to turn first to you. Just give us a little bit about the election itself. What are the results? What's going on?
Well, Sudani's party is definitely taking the lead in the election. I think that one thing to recognize is that although it won the actual election and won the vote, Sudani's not necessarily going to be the prime minister just because of the way that the process works for forming the government. It could take several months, and his party, while it has several loose, if not very strong coalitions within it with other parties, it's definitely going to be a rough road ahead in order for Sudani to win a second term, which is probably not likely. And we've seen in the past where the person who's actually won the election did not win the second term when the government was actually formed. And so that'll be interesting to see. I think one positive thing, and I think it's really great, is that turnout was much higher than expected. It was 56.11%. And people were projecting it would be like in the 40s or something. And that is even though one of the opposition parties was protesting, well, not protesting, but boycotting the election. And we saw a pretty smooth election voting, not a lot of political violence in a country that is sort of known for political violence over the past several decades. And so, those are really good signs as far as where the electorate is going, as far as, seeing democracy is a good thing. And I think that's a very good sign. I think it's really important also to note that, in a country where political violence is sort of what we come to expect, young people were out voting despite a protest or sort of boycott, I should say, by opposition parties. And it's been relatively successful. Democracy, as you know, is messy. It's not pretty, right? It's certainly harder and more difficult than authoritarian rule. And so I think it's a really positive sign what we've seen in this 2025 election in Iraq.
Great. I like the positivity on a Friday. Okay, Matt, turning to you. Hopefully you can keep the vibes going. What do you see about the results? What does this mean for the U.S.-Iraq, relationship?
So first, we do have to take a victory lap that the government is open. Like we don't have to do a whole podcast about it, but we can shoot the confetti, rip torn. The government is open. But at the same time, when we look at politics there, everyone always knows politics is local, but the United States, its politics is regional. And so in this area of the world, we have a lot of Arab states. They're currently lined up for the Abraham Accords and different levels of economic exchange, trade with the United States, the EU, and others. And so these types of elections really point from the U.S. interest to have them be aligned with those neighbors, as opposed to the Iranians and the challenges that they're looking into when it comes to making chaos, sowing problems across the world, and funding their efforts to just be troublemakers. So we want to make sure at a baseline that the Iraqis are supported and understand that we look forward to them becoming equitable trade partners in being a part of this Arabian state society that's over there, and not to become havens for terrorist training camps or anything of the like that really causes a disruptive effect in the global stage. And also, we're willing to invest in things like our ability to have air bases there and stations and things of the like. That relationship is very important.
Les, man in a car, no seatbelt. You've got road rage, I'm sure, flowing through your veins right now.
Always.
Where Matt brought up, the region politics is regional here in the. What's going on in the region? What do the Iraqi, election results potentially mean for outside its borders, the region?
Well, several thoughts. First, good for Iraq. Hey, it's a democracy. They're the good voter turnout. This is, I think, the sixth major election we've had in Iraq since the toppling of Saddam Hussein. So in the long run, this much criticized U.S. foreign policy adventure may have a really positive impact in Iraq. Several other interesting things going on. Their most problematic neighbor, Syria to the north, has kind of a fresh start with the ouster of the old dictator and possibilities of kind of a re-entry into the international system. A very effective pushback by Israel with a little boost from the United States on Iranian proxies in the region, in Gaza, in Lebanon, even in Yemen. That kind of leaves Iraq as maybe the biggest opportunity for Iran in the region. In other words, the place where Iran has perhaps the most influence. And I think that makes it a challenge for the Trump administration. They've already done some interesting things through the National Energy Dominance Council to kind of tie U.S. energy policy in the region and opportunities to the role of these Iranian-backed militias in Iraq. They've got to keep doing that. As we go into this government formation part of the process in Iraq, which is going to take several months in all likelihood, that's the time for the U.S. to use its influence and to pressure the Iraqis to do the right thing and reduce the influence of these militias to push Iran out of Iraq. In the long run, that's terrific for the Iraqi people. So a lot of things to watch here. And I think, if anything, it makes Iraq more and more important to U.S. national security interests in the region.
So you're saying we picked a good topic today?
Maybe you did.
I'll take it. That's a wrap. Thanks so much to Kelly Crowley, Taylor Lane, and Claude Jennings for their help in producing today's episode. Join us on Monday, November 17th. We're getting closer to Thanksgiving, guys. We're getting closer for another episode of Fault Lines, NSI's podcast that gets you smart fast on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. We're on YouTube. Check out the roof of Les's car in our video. And if you like what you heard or saw, be sure to rate, review, or subscribe.